Welcome to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. I'm Ted Bonnet.
I'm Phil Proctor.
Oh, hi, Phil.
And I'm the real one. I knew two other Phil Proctors out here in L.A.
Really?
Can you believe that? The first one was the son of a publicist who worked for the Mark Taper Forum when I did Musica, my first major play down here. And then the second one is the stage manager at Pepperdine, Phil Proctor's. Yeah, see? So
Did they impersonate you? Or
no, but I get their pensions,
Nice.
their checks and everything. So it's been good. It's
That's
good.
good.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to be here. We're here every Tuesday at 1 o'clock on KPFK.
Barely.
Barely.
And we have a guest.
Oh, yes, our
Hey,
guest, Bill Cates. Hey, Bill.
Howdy.
And Bill's an old radio maven as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, an old, young radio.
he's a young-looking
Young,
old
old.
maven.
Yeah.
Have you been watching that? I watched some of the trial today. I mean, the updates on the trial. The
Oh,
Trump
is the trial
today.
going on? What is that
Oh,
about?
yeah. Yeah. It's evidently there's an odor in the court.
Odor in the court.
Oh, we've heard about that, yeah.
Well, James Carville said that people who worked with Trump said that he smelled like, an outhouse.
It's the devil's due. And
Yeah.
It's not going to be pretty.
A fart on you, John Proctor.
Oh, my
That's
God.
all I can say.
Oh, my God. Anyway, it's what an interesting time to be alive.
Yeah, you call this alive?
Well, it's live, that's for sure.
Yeah, call this
I'm
living.
going to blow my nose.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Great. There's a cough button for that.
No, we're only human.
Bill Cates,
board.
Bill Cates,
our
ladies
guest
and gentlemen.
today. Bill, welcome.
Yeah.
How are
Thank
you?
I'm great, thank you. Despite the severe tire damage.
Yes, he's had we have to find parking here at our new location across from the police department. All right, so we can't park illegally. And there's an Armenian.
Don't pull into the church parking lot off Clark Street.
Right,
That's all
because
I can
it's
tell
got tire shredders,
you.
which he didn't
and
see.
No sign. No sign.
No sign. No.
So you guys met.
You get a sign from God.
You were
Yes.
you are an audio radio producer.
Yes. I first met Phil and the rest of the Fire Sign guys in Boston years ago because I was a longtime Fire Sign fan since I was like 13 years old. I can probably blame the Fire Sign Theater for getting me into the radio business in the first place.
Not responsible.
At least
Bark and
partly
lock
because
it.
my dad loved old radio, and then my brother was a hippie, and then and I loved like the Beatles, and then I heard the Fire Sign Theater. It was like, oh my gosh, this is Orson Welles meets John Lennon.
And LSD.
And a little bit of that, too.
LSD.
And it really blew my mind, and I loved it. And I decided I want to do what these guys do.
Oh, that's great.
So I learned about editing and making film at a little place called The Loft in Bronxville, New York. I was taught editing by a woman named Mary Lamson. And editing, Mary Lamson was the editor for D.A. Pennebaker, who made Don't Look Back and Millhouse and a lot of
We're
great-
talking film here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Great
But,
filmmaker.
so I learned how to cut tape and mix really
Sound,
at the same
right.
time
Yeah.
that I learned how to cut film.
Excellent.
But I really loved film from the sound perspective the most.
Yeah, there's nothing like that.
I grew up going to see Leonard Bernstein and the New York Philharmonic, So I love music. I just love all this stuff. And I'm
Was
a
that
trained
the Young
musician.
People's program? Did you see that?
the Young
in New
People's
York?
concerts?
I did too.
Yeah.
We probably sat in there and didn't even know that we were in the same.
Hey, my mom went
place.
on a double date with Leonard Bernstein.
Wow.
Oh, because he was both gay and straight, and on the date.
yeah, he
Is that
was.
why?
He was definitely.
He was
the bi.
he was bi.
He was doubling.
My mother was dating Vernon Duke.
right.
Do you remember him? He was a composer. He was probably best known for writing "Let Your Fingers Do the Walking" in the Yellow Pages.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So she had this wonderful double date with Leonard.
Wow.
She said it was incredible. He was just like bursting with energy.
Oh, that
Oh, I
must have
bet.
been wonderful.
I bet that
they-
that
did
film
they
really
spoon?
captured him.
This had to be like late 40s.
Now,
Yeah.
did they spoon or did they fork?
I don't know. I didn't ask my
Your
mother.
Yeah.
I didn't want to
First thing
know,
you say to
to be
mom.
honest.
No, but Bradley Cooper really captured him amazingly. We used to meet him afterwards in the green room.
Yeah?
All the kids who knew would go up to the green room afterwards and say hello to Uncle Lenny. But anyway,
Wow.
So then I started an internship at WBCN in Boston, the legendary WBCN.
Yes.
And got to know all these wonderful people there, including the guy who became my mentor, who was a man named Jerry Goodwin, who was a legendary Detroit disc jockey. And he became known, he called himself the Duke of Madness.
Oh,
and
he
for
did?
years, I had no idea that was at all related to Firesign. But he loved radio theater, and I loved radio theater. And I basically just started, I was a news intern, and I started making these weird little bits in his, in the news production studio.
Little drop-ins?
Things I wasn't really supposed to do this, but I did it anyway.
That's the story, folks.
And I would give the pieces to him, and I said, what do you think of this? And he was like, oh my God, that's great. Let's put it on.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that's how I got started doing radio theater, making radio theater kind of my specialty in radio, which was a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
So, of course, I mostly made commercials, and I went from WBCN in Boston for 12 years to KROK in New York.
And I think we have a sample of something here.
Yeah.
Time once again for the Howl of the Wolf movie.
Today's feature, High School Madness, has been preempted in order that we may bring you the 13th Annual Award Show Awards Show.
The award-winning award show that awards to outstanding award show.
And for our Award Show pre-show,
Which incidentally has coveted more than just a few awards.
we switch you live to our correspondent Manny Milk, who is standing by, foaming at the mouth at the San Luis Obispo Paul Bucker's Foam Dome. Manny. Manny.
Seems like there might be some technical difficulty with our foam dome feed.
Manny's got bad laryngitis. Well, that leaves us free to talk about...
Yes, sir.
It starts with an F.
Firesign Theater.
Oh, yes.
Those madcap, wacky rapscallions have traded in their goofballs for sensible shoes and have organized themselves to the point where they now do a live show.
No.
Can you believe it? Every month.
There's another Firesign Theater Fools in Space again real soon.
On XM Comedy 150.
You wouldn't have any of those little growth clusters around, would you, Mike?
No, that's Ed Sam.
Stop torturing me, Ethel.
Saturday nights, Tuesday afternoons, and in the wee hours, Thursday morning.
Only on XM Comedy 150. Well, golly, what'll they think of next? Them Firesign Theater fools and space fellas ain't really going away.
No, they just setting a spell and just grab your corn cob, do the same. It's XM Comedy 150 right here.
I'm sitting on my corn cob.
Yeah. That was the tag.
Wow, is that
So this is how you met the Firesign, because you were producing these promos for Sirius XM.
So yeah,
Not Sirius XM, it was just XM then, wasn't it?
that was how I really met them. I sort of met them as a fan at the exit door,
Right.
in Boston. But then Peter Bergman really became the person that I corresponded with the most when I was working at XM Radio. This is after KROK, so I went WBCN to KROK in New York with Howard Stern and all those people. And then a few years of doing various things, and then XM Comedy. I became like the main comedy producer.
Yeah, and the Firesign Theater was hired to help develop the comedy network for XM.
Right. So I was given the task of creating the promos for the
show that we
Firesign
did.
show.
Yeah. Fools in Space.
And I wrote a script up, and people said, "Oh, well, you can't expect them. They won't do the script that you wrote. They're just going to change everything." And I imagined it sounding a certain way, the way that just sounded. Mm-hmm. And then I sent it off to you guys in California. I was in New York. And then you guys ended up doing it exactly as I wrote it.
Yeah, no work. We didn't have to worry about it.
Which blew my mind. And Peter basically said, "Oh, yeah, you understood us, so we just did it." And I was like, "Oh, my God, that's the greatest compliment I ever got in my life," was the fact that the Firesign Theater actually read what I wrote.
Respected what you wrote.
Yeah, and because it
was funny.
I truly understood them.
Yep, you did.
Yeah,
you got the whole psychedelic
So that was
side
them. That was Firesign Theater, produced by me to sound as much like the records as
it was
possible.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, which twin's the clone? Well, the answer may surprise you, but
Salamander. If you say this enough, a terrarium should slowly start to form around you, within you, without you.
Surrounded by a thin, all-digital shell. And inside, it's delicious. In fact, these are the only genuine, genetically modified, semi-organic whole beef halves endorsed by the Firesign Theater themselves. Don't believe me? I wouldn't. Just ask this one here.
Well, Harv, the greatest thing about these little honeys is now... Here, look at this. Just pull the wings off. And they don't scream too much. They're the perfect snack for Todd or Maud to accompany the next broadcast of the Firesign Theater Fools in Space on XM Satellite Radio.
And when would this be heard? A Clem?
I don't know, but I'll bet this announcer does.
The richly textured sounds of the Firesign Theater's Fools in Space can be heard Saturdays at 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West, Tuesdays at 3 p.m. in the East, 12 noon in the West, and Thursdays at 3 a.m. in the East and midnight in the West.
That's got to be the worst to tag out with those kind of call-out times.
Oh, I know. No,
it's the worst. You had to have a piece of paper. You still get confused.
Yeah. You're putting 5 pounds of potatoes into a 1 pound bag. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a good idea. You produced all of that. Your whole
Yeah. And that became my especially first on tape recorders. And then my parents indulged me when I was a tiny child. They would buy me the cheap little reel-to-reel tape recorders, me and my brother used to make fake radio shows and TV shows on the tape recorders. And
God, there were so many of us nerds back then.
Yeah.
I did the same
Shadow
thing.
Stevens was the youngest disc jockey in America for a while.
Yeah, so did several people that I talked to that I know. It's just sort of how we started. And like Steven Spielberg, I made 8mm movies too. Epic science fiction and monster movies that, of course, weren't very epic. They were just basically, Godzilla models in garbage cans. But
yeah, oh man, it was
but
so
that's
similar.
how we got started. And then I went from digital from analog to digital. First on the Roland DM800 digital workstation, and then I learned Pro Tools. And I would never want to go back to anything after doing Pro Tools.
Or doing anything digitally.
Oh, no. And even analog. I mean, analog sounds great, but now Pro Tools is now at the point – I'm not being paid for this, folks – at the point where it sounds every bit as good as
Do you think that today you're able to do sort of your best work ever because of the tools?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I feel that way, too.
Yeah.
Pro Tools, for folks who are not technically proficient.
It's a DAW, a digital audio workstation.
Yeah.
It's a software that allows you to edit audio and mix audio.
Yeah,
cool. And extremely robust program.
And you don't need a pair of scissors and tape to put all the pieces together.
No, indeed.
But it was a good place to start cutting tape when you were young. It was a good place to start.
And after I worked at KROK in New York, I got a brief job with a production company that'll remain nameless that they didn't have digital yet. This is like 1996, 97.
The name was Remain Nameless? That's a good name for a company.
They were called that.
Shall Remain Nameless. It's a good name.
They and I had already learned how to do digital production, and they only had reel-to-reel tape, and I had to go back after using digital for a while. I had to go back to doing reel-to-reel, and it was like
what is reality?
Yeah, and it was the analogy I have is it was like having learned how to drive a Porsche, and then being handed a bunch of Fred Flintstone sticks and and having to basically go back to being Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, but those
square
Fred
wheels.
Flintstone sticks and stones last like stick and stones. I have to say that all of my stuff that I did on tape still sounds like I did it yesterday.
Yeah.
You can't say that about much of the digital media.
Not the earlier ones.
Yeah.
Now it's good. Now it's way better.
But now I met you more recently in your capacity as a producer and also a songwriter.
Oh, yes.
In a series of characters based on the Dr. Seuss books.
Oh, yeah.
For a children's toy called the Tony Box.
Yes,
right?
Indeed. Tony's Toys are a toy company. They put out these little figures about 3 inches high. And they're of all the popular characters, like, the Little Mermaid and the Lion King and the Sesame Street characters. And then they hired me in around 2020 to start making their Dr. Seuss series. So they're little – you put the little figure, it's got each of the figures has a
magnetic base.
A magnet and a chip on the bottom. So you put the – Little Mermaid.
I thought
on
they had
top
a chip
thing.
on their shoulder.
Well, that's me.
Oh.
You put the thing on top of the box. It's a little dedicated box. It's about the size of a 45.
It's a little
record
speaker.
box.
It's a little speaker box.
And then you put the thing on top, and it loads it up, and then it says, "Hi, I'm the Little Mermaid, and this is blah blah." So these are the Dr. Seuss figures, and I was so happy to be able to hire my friend and hero Phil Proctor to be the voice of
I've heard of him.
the Cat in the Hat, the Grinch. Horton the Elephant, and then a few other characters that have to remain.
Can't talk about yet.
We can't talk about them yet, but
it's a real page turner.
It's like
Fritz the cat.
Not Fritz. No,
this is still for children. I can't say what it is.
That was my friend Skip Hinnant who did the voice for that.
Yeah,
who I worked with at Yale.
Oh man! And so this is your cat.
This, I guess, is an excerpt from my Cat in the Hat.
Oh, here's Phil.
Oh, yeah.
They need one more cat, and I know just the one. Look close. In my hand, I have little cat V. On his head are cats W, X, Y, and Z. Z is too small to see, so don't try. You cannot. But Z is the cat who will clean up that spot. Now here is the Z you can't see,
said the cat.
And I bet you can't guess what he has in his hat.
Yep, yeah, we're not allowed to play more than 30 seconds of that. Oh. It's dedicated stuff. It doesn't come out on a cassette or a CD or anything. You can only hear these amazingly well-produced stories.
With original music and
by
song.
Greta Gertler Gold. Look her up,
GGG, Triple G?
Well, yes, but she records under the name Greta Gertler, Gertler.
Huh.
And she's this incredibly wonderful pop musician and composer.
She's Australian, is she?
She is Australian, and she's working on some Broadway stuff now. Hopefully, it'll make it to Broadway. It's certainly Broadway worthy. She's an amazing.
She moved from down under to Brooklyn, I understand. Eh?
Yeah, but if you look her up and Google her music, she's on Spotify and all the Spotify.
She's a wonderful musician. She really is.
Her own records, the Greta Gertler albums, are just, if you like Brian Wilson and the Beatles and just melodic, beautiful music, you will like what she does, for sure. So proud to have been composing and making. What's wonderful is I'll go to sleep. I'll think I got to make a thing for the Cat in the Hat, and I'll start to think of some music in my head, and then I would call her and say, "Hey, what about da 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 da?" And then she would get together on her thing, and she understood what I was actually making as little memos of musical things, because I'm not a great musician. I can sort of eke out some things in the keyboard, but I can sing,
right? But
I'm not a musician.
I chose to sing ultimately over the violin because I could carry my instrument with me wherever I went.
Exactly, and
I can't imagine you playing violin.
But she
Why
really,
not?
I just can't.
Well, here, look at this.
Okay, now I can.
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I can.
See your fingers here.
You play your voice so well. I never even think of you having an appendage of any kind.
Oh, it's like Jack Benny too.
Like Jack Benny.
So anyway, she would take these little things that I would hum, and she would create these orchestral, beautiful, full spectrum things. And that's what's fun about the Tony Box is you can listen to it over the little speaker that's built into the Tony Box, but then you plug in the headphones, and it's actually full, high resolution waves. They're even better than the wave files that you hear
than tidal waves.
as well, or a CD.
Yeah.
And they sound fantastic through headphones. So the idea is we're making music for these things. Dr. Seuss toys.
And yet it is absolutely the Seuss family representative kept an eye on everything that we did to make sure that we were reading the words of the book so kids can follow along.
Right.
And a few things were changed to make them more PC than they were back in the day. Very few things, but you know, instead of shooting animals, you'd take pictures of them. You'd shoot them with a camera.
Yeah, a couple of changes there that they made. But
did they shoot animals in the original?
There are hunters in one of the
there's no wholesale slaughter.
I don't remember that.
It's not Bambi, as we say.
But they did Blamby. They did indeed have lots of things where they're pursuing the critters, and that's just been.
Speaking of Blamby, you produced something that's kind of twisted and dark with. Yes, one of our well-known cartoon characters out there, Elmer Fudd.
Well, yes. Yeah. So this is. I should mention that one of the great people that I worked with, and started with at WBCM. We both started on the listener line. Is the great voice artist Billy West.
Oh yeah,
and I ended up working with Billy for the better part of 20 years from WBCN, and then the company brought him over to KROK in New York, where he became well known with Howard Stern. Billy is best known as doing the voice of Ren and Stimpy, and Fry, Dr. Zoidberg, Professor Farnsworth, whoever the hero character is that is on that show. And and I was really fortunate to work with Billy and do quite a few bits with him, both at WBCN and at KROK in New York when he started working with Howard Stern. We would write up things. This is Billy West, all Billy.
More than 2 decades after The Doors, he's still hot, he's sexy, and he's hunting wabbits. He's Elmer Fudd. White as on a storm, and wabbits in the woods. Forget Val Kilmer. Elmer Fudd is Jim Morrison.
Wabbit, you're stuck? I want to kill you. With a maroon. Kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit. Come on, baby, wipe my fire. Try to set the night on fire!
Mr. Fudd, you've gone too far.
Leave me alone.
There's a city ordinance against cooking a rabbit on stage.
Let's just say I was testing the bounds of reality.
There are things known, and there are things unknown. And in between, there is Elmer Fudd.
Nuts! A bad acid trip. Wabbits! Wabbits! Wabbits!
Elmer Fudd is Jim Morrison, coming soon to a theater near you.
Boy, who knew that side of Elmer?
Yeah. Well, that was just one of those crazy ideas.
Here's another one you did, Bill.
Another drop.
This is Gumby the movie.
Okay, now I wrote this one when Batman the movie came out. And so this one is written by me, and then it features Billy West and myself as the voices. Billy's the prominent voice in this.
Francis Ford Coppola, in association with Dino De Laurentiis Entertainment, presents the dramatic motion picture event of the decade. Rex Reed calls it astounding. The Miami Herald declares it animated and bizarre, filled with a peculiar brand of psychosexual tension unheralded in film history. Michael Keaton.
What are you?
I'm Gumby. Gumby, the movie, co-starring Jeff Goldblum as Pokey.
But Gumby, does Toy Town really need giant bees that build their own cages?
Sean Penn as Prickle.
I'm telling you, that's no ordinary Katina doll.
Gumby.
Kim Basinger as Goo.
Oh, Gumby, you really make me change my shape.
And Jack Nicholson as the Blockheads.
Wait till they get a load of me, and me, and me, and me, and me.
Prepare yourself for an epic adventure of danger, romance, and clay.
To enter Mirrorland, Gumby, you've got to do everything backwards.
Gumby, the movie, coming soon to a theater near you. A Plasticine Pictures release.
Happy birthday to Jack Nicholson. He turned something yesterday.
Oh. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Wow, that's really funny.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Boy, how did you assemble a cast like that? That must cost you a fortune.
Oh, yeah. But they did it cheap because they didn't really exist.
Our guest today is Bill Cates, and you're listening to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show, and you can hear all our past shows on our website at sexyboomershow.com. sexyboomershow.com, and on your favorite podcast platforms.
That's right. You can visit my messy mind at planetproctor.com, and of course you can always get more Firesign Theater stuff at firesigntheater.com.
Hey, Bill, so you came out west like I did, and did you come out to do radio?
No, I came out, actually, not to make this too much about Billy, but I was emailing Billy just saying, you know, what should I do now? Because I was out of work at the XM and Sirius merged, so I was looking for something to do, and I really wanted to branch out to do more voice work myself. I discovered, I was one of those kids in elementary school who was the funny kid who did funny voices. Then, of course, I ended up working with Billy for years and sort of always let him do the voices. And then one day at XM, I discovered, wait a second, I can actually do, hey, what's up, Doc? Oh my God, I can do that.
You can do that.
I can do that too. It's not to hone in on anybody's territory, but I just realized I had great flexibility, and I can do any one of a number of voices. So I started to branch out and try to do voice work on my own. And Billy said in an email, hey, if you want to do what we do and you're one of us, which you are, Bill, then you need to come out here to L.A. because this is where it happens.
Go west, young man.
And so just that one little sentence made me say, hey, I got to come out here. And so I did in 2012. And I've had varying success. I've also really been learning how to act as a person on camera, which is totally different from acting on stage, which is the thing I did forever.
And you're doing a role. You're going to work next week, aren't you?
Yeah. I just filmed something a few days ago for TV. I can't say what it is yet officially, but
wait, is that thing that you moved? You went up to. You had to drive up to Fresno for?
No, that was for a commercial.
Okay,
and then there's a thing that's going to be on TV soon.
A mystery thing.
I haven't done anything really notable yet.
All right, now the character that you're playing is Dr. Moreau. Well, you can say that. I think Dr. Moreau is H.G. Wells, so what the hell?
I think that's just no copyright on that. But I can't really reveal too much about that yet.
No, because you haven't done it yet.
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to that. And I think I'm finally figuring out how to act in front of a camera, which is totally different from the way you act on stage or in front of a microphone.
We will be acting on stage in front of a microphone evening.
What are you guys doing tonight?
We're doing a show at the Golden Age Theater. It's a short story by L. Ron Hubbard and somebody else. He collaborated with somebody on it called The Last Drop. And for many years now, they have been recreating the wonderful stories that L. Ron Hubbard wrote during the golden age of pulp fiction. He was amazing and prolific. And all this was before all of the religious nonsense and everything. But if you look at it, I wouldn't say religion. It was before he applied his mind to trying to create a school that would teach people how to basically use their personality to their own benefit.
Right.
In any event, the stories are funny. They cover, he does pirate stories and aviatric stories and voodoo stories and detective stories. This one is called The Last Drop, and it's a fantasy about a strange elixir that makes people either big or very small.
It's
really fun. You play 3 parts or so, right?
Yeah. It's just a great excuse to get up there and
the L. Ron Hubbard Theater at the Golden Age Theater in the artists, what is it called, building?
Authors Services.
Authors Services building on Hollywood Boulevard near Chinese Theater. They do a state-of-the-art.
Great sound effects, great music.
God.
It's all beautiful.
I went to see you perform there once.
That's right.
And I was really struck by how high-end their facility is to produce strictly audio drama.
It's just pure fun for me.
And
it is. It's great fun. And it's tremendously well supported. There's backdrop pictures and little costume touches. And they created they use teleprompters so that you don't even have to hold a script in your hand. And each production is different. Some of them, no scripts in your hand. You move around, you do things. This one we're going to do more like a standard radio show.
And with our dear friend Jim Meskimen.
Oh, very talented, the Billy West of the West, Jim Meskimen.
One of the most amazing talents I've ever come
Isn't
across.
he, though?
And he's been on our show. You can,
and he's such a sweet guy.
He sure has.
Yeah.
Or some of him.
A few of him.
And R.F. Daly is directing us, and he's a wonderful, wonderful.
Who's the end user here?
These pieces were recorded and released in a large series of CDs.
You've done a whole bunch of them.
I did almost 100 voices for them. We did it over almost a 3-year period. And they are the short stories of L. Ron Hubbard, the golden age of pulp fiction. And it's a series that you can get. You can rent them take them out at the libraries if you want.
I'm wondering if they're on podcast platforms.
And they're beautifully produced, original music and everything. It's really great.
I'm not sure.
I don't know if they're on if they're available.
So you're both gonna perform and
tonight,
and you're not gonna join the church?
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to join the church.
No,
certainly not.
And the people that we're working with are absolutely delightful. No proselytizing or anything.
I was raised a Unitarian, so I'm good with if this was at a synagogue or a Buddhist temple, I'd do it. Whatever the religion is, if they're doing radio theater and they're not doing bad things
or entertainment
I'm all for
and all of that, sure.
This Kennedy bit, this is an interesting.
Yes. So yes. Now after. After I worked at KROK in New York with Howard Stern and all those wonderful people, and I got to meet all sorts of colorful characters in New York, like Ron Jeremy and Donald Trump.
Put them together. That's right.
In combination.
They're great. They were great together.
They were born again.
I'm kidding, of course, folks. I don't want to lie.
I did hang out with Ron Jeremy.
Did you? Yeah, a lot of us did.
Well,
Not
Ron
me,
Jeremy
but-
hung out for a lot of us.
Let me put it this way. I went to a screening that my friend wrote the movie for that he was in.
Mhm.
It's not like I hung out with him, but I ended up going out with all the stars of the 80s.
Wow.
All the biggest porn
These are
stars.
the adult-
Jamie Gillis. We all went out to get drinks.
Yeah.
I actually hung out with the women, of course.
Right.
And wow, what an interesting conversation that was. But go on.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Let's get some of them on the show.
It was a colorful time in New York. It certainly
Yeah, it
was.
was.
And I had a lot of fun then. And I got to know a lot of people, including people from a magazine called High Times magazine.
Yeah, I remember it. Firesign was featured in High Times several
Right.
times.
And that was like the marijuana Bible.
Yes.
And I don't know if they still exist, but I ended up working with one of the editors there after I worked at KROK. I want to be sure to point out that I mentioned Howard Stern, but
Yeah.
I was not part of Howard Stern's crew. I was hired by the station to produce for the station, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying I worked as part of Howard Stern's crew.
We
But,
wouldn't hold that
of course,
against you.
I know, but they were very adamant about, don't ever say you worked for Howard Stern, even though, of course, I ended up working with Stern a lot. But they were very much a separate entity, kind of almost, even though they were part of it.
And you
Anyway.
told me that in the movie, the Howard Stern movie, which
Private Parts,
which I did voices for, I really enjoyed.
That's
seeing
right.
the
Yeah,
film.
you did ADR.
Yeah, you said that they recreated the studio.
Oh, that was me. That
was
me.
you.
Yeah, I worked
Yeah.
with Howard when he was before he was a comedian.
Oh,
when he was a straight DJ.
WRNW.
WRNW.
Yeah.
And so
They made it look like that. Yeah.
Oh, he went back to the same house and he rebuilt the whole place.
Wow.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
I got to hand it to him for that.
That movie really surprised me.
Yeah,
I gotta
it was
say.
very
because he's
entertaining.
honest. That's the secret
Yeah.
to his success, in my opinion. Is
Yeah.
he's honest about
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
And there's a
Yeah.
lot of material there.
For sure.
Yeah.
I was really glad to have the
opportunity
the
to work
times when I worked with him. I would do like PSAs with him and stuff sometimes. And
Great.
I ended up working on some of the bits and stuff, especially bits
And
that
Trump,
Billy worked on.
Ted again told me that Trump was very anxious to be on the show, right? All the time.
Actually, I used to see like people like Mr. Trump in the lobby and stuff. Waiting.
They were lobbying for what?
They were trying to
Part of
get.
the
They were
show?
trying to get messages to Howard.
Jesus,
Really?
And they would stop people like me in the. There were a lot of people that would do this. They would stop me and they would say, "Hey, you work up there, don't you?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." Could you just give Howard a message? Just tell him that, Janine said that, Larry wasn't going to be over at the thing, and really he just misunderstood the whole thing. Like some whole little thing that I had no idea what they were talking about. But just be sure that Howard knows that, Barbara isn't really mad at him. And I'd be like, it's not my job to be his messenger.
No.
But then I would see his producer Gary Delabate, and I'd say, "Hey, Gary,
tell Howard that Barbara's not really mad.
well, Ron Jeremy's in the lobby, and he wanted me to, forward this message to you." And Gary would be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever," yeah. And I don't want to go too into that.
Well, let's get into some marijuana.
But yeah. So very quickly, I ended up becoming the producer of the High Times Radio Hour.
Woo!
And this was one of the many bits that I did with a fine reader, a talent, very funny guy. Malcolm McKinnon was one of the editors there, and he also was the host of the
podcast
of the show. And this is my first experience really working with Pro Tools and producing stuff on my own in my house, really. And this was one of the bits that we did for the High Times Radio Hour. I was very proud of this one.
Marijuana's marched through history. 1962. At a top-secret poolside location just outside of Washington, D.C.
Marilyn, would you like another beer, my sweet?
Sure, Jack. Sounds swell.
Okay then, Bobby, could you get Marilyn and myself some more beers from the fridge?
Not until I get another kiss from Marilyn there.
Now, hang on just a minute, little Mr. Attorney General brother of mine.
Okay.
It just so happens to be my turn with Marilyn here, and your turn with the rubber ducky float toy.
Now, hold on one second there, Jack. Mom always did like you best. However, at
she
this
might
time, I
have
must
liked me
point
back,
out...
but it was
Boys, here. I got this from my houseboy. He's Mexican.
Now you're talking, Marilyn. Is this more of that Michoacan?
God bless you there, Jack. Yes, we should light this up at this time, I suggest.
That is quite nice, Bobby.
Better than those Cuban cigars.
I'm going to sing happy birthday to you at your party. I swear.
Now, Marilyn, before we get carried away, my family, as you well know, has always avoided scandal of any kind. And
Stay tuned for more of Marijuana's March Through History.
Any monkey business of your kind.
Yeah, we did a bunch of those at High Times Radio. And then from High Times, I went to XM Satellite Radio and started producing comedy and music. We had all these different channels.
Sure.
So one day, we'd have like Dolly Parton in the morning, then Luciano Pavarotti at noon, and then...
Oh, that was an album.
Yeah. And then Robert Downey Jr. would come in for an interview with Billy Bob Thornton right afterwards.
Wow.
I mean, it was crazy. We had all these crazy days. And one of the people that I was very fortunate to get to know during this time was another one of my heroes. I've managed to get to know a few of my heroes, Phil Proctor being prime among them. And another one was the great Neil Innes. If you don't know who Neil Innes was, he was part of the Monty Python troupe. He did all the music for Monty Python, so he's the one who sings "Bravely Bold Sir Robin." Anyway, we struck up a friendship as a result of doing a bunch of things, and I managed to actually perform with him a bunch of times. And I did a few interviews with him that ended up on XM Satellite Radio that haven't been heard since then. This is an excerpt from one of them where he talks about the great, of course, Neil Innes was also part of the Bonzo Dog Band and the Ruddles. And so here he is talking about a Bonzo Dog Band song, which is one of my favorite pieces of sort of musique concrète comedy. Yeah, it speaks for itself.
For that, I mean, Joel Druckmann, who was then the bass player, was interviewing people. And Viv literally was in his underpants with a pair of rabbit ears on his head, hopping about on the pavement in the high street. And that's why the guy said, "Look at that, that's not right. Look at him, he's got a head on him like a rabbit." And that was referring to Viv, who was actually doing it. We didn't need to be psychedelic, Bill.
Exactly. It just was there. You're just describing reality. Or you're letting others describe your reality.
Because we were actually wondering ourselves, what was normal. It became quite a debate. Because there we were, we'd just sort of left art school. And we were doing things we'd never dreamed we would be doing. We were sitting in a van, at least once a week and driving hundreds of miles. We were playing shows every night. And we got kind of stir crazy in a way. So we started to examine it collectively. And also Viv had this idea. It would be nice to sort of do a chart, as it were, of the track. And it was a linear chart. And it started off with, waves breaking. And out of this kind of primordial soup would come these creatures. We are. And so on. And it would build into this kind of, modern day frantic, da-da-da-da-bam-bam-bam-bam.
And here come some normals. They look like normal Hawaiians.
Well, you didn't mention what month.
Do you think you're normal?
Yes, quite normal.
Okay, here comes one.
Say.
Well, it's not for me to deter, really, is it? I mean, it's for a psychiatrist to deter these things, isn't it?
They like their food, and they are very nice people.
Oh, it's all right, isn't it?
I've got brains. Smart. Short backside.
It is unusual. Well, it's like a rabbit. He's got a head on him like a rabbit.
What's the name
We
of this
Are
song?
Normal.
We Are Normal.
We are normal and we want our freedom. So that was Neil Innes talking it up, as they say.
That's well-known.
Yeah.
It's a well-known weird...
Well, the Bonzo Dog Band. Their
Close.
most famous song was "I'm the Urban Spaceman."
I think we're all bonzos on this.
Yeah. Their most famous song is "I'm the Urban Spaceman," which was, of course, produced by Paul McCartney. So they were contemporaries of the Beatles. They hung out with the Beatles. Neil Innes was great friends with George Harrison, and his wife Yvonne actually ended up being his
paramour.
No. Ended up being George and Olivia's gardener. She's a great gardener.
You heard it here first, folks.
I think she's still doing that.
Trivial Pursuit.
She takes care of all the beautiful gardens.
Weed. She takes care of the weed.
No, the flowers and things.
Oh. How about the octopus's garden under the sea?
Yeah. Well, she might have done that too. But anyway, yeah. But that was that was a great time, and I'm very sad that we've lost Neil. But what was that last thing that we had? We had one more thing.
Well, there's our jazz station in New York called WBGO, and you did an all blues promo for them.
Yeah, I'm just super proud of this piece.
Jazz is 88.3. Now jazz is 88.3. Now jazz and blues and R&B. Now WBGO. Jazz and R&B and blues.
Full circle in my life.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a
wonderful
beautiful
being here
promo.
with you guys. Thank you so much for having me here.
It was a pleasure. We could talk on and on and on.
Bill
and on.
Cates.
Bill Cates, ladies and gentlemen.
So
and I'm
much
looking
fun.
forward to continuing our collaboration artistically and
Yeah,
otherwise.
well, break
That's
a
the
leg
idea.
tonight.
Thank you. Break a tongue.
Break a
Thank you.
tongue.
Tonight.
Thank you. You're listening to Phil and Ted's Sexy Boomer Show. We're here every Tuesday at
Yep.
1 o'clock for
God
a live
willing.
Anything Goes show.
That's right.
And you can also catch our shows on our website, sexyboomershow.com.
Next week, we'll have Jamie Alcroft and Sarah Kawahara, the proud parents of Haley Kiyoko, among others. And it's bound to be a very interesting conversation.
And enjoy the week, folks. It's very consequential what's going on these days on the college campuses and in New York in the courtrooms.
Yale was in the news.
Boy,
Oh, my God.
Democracy being tried.
Democracy rules, we hope.
Did you try democracy yet?
See you next week.